Eddie Bunge's going to moderate this a little bit, and we're pleased to have him. And Charlie McCord, please welcome.
Thank you, Kurt. Charlie and I want to thank the board tonight, which is Chris and Kurt, Bob, Mike. It goes on and on. There's a bunch. We thank you so much. It's such a great opportunity for people to get to know the musicians, artists, writers, whatever. It's a wonderful program once a month, first Monday of every month. So get involved with it. Tonight we're going to have a fun time with my old sidekick here. You know. But you know what? I want to read. I've got to read this. This is Charlie's bio. He just handed it to me, and I want to read this. He is Charles Chucker McCord, was born in Joplin, Missouri in poverty, an illegitimate son of an itinerant walnut tree logging family that wandered the American Ozarks Plateau looking for seasonal work. Date of birth uncertain, but generally believed to have occurred sometime during the Second World War. I can't do this anymore.
Let me just read the last paragraph then.
No, don't.
Charles has only very recently reached a personal decision to clear his conscience and admit that he is the father of Kamala Harris's children and wonders if any money is involved, perhaps some illegal campaign donations or something like that.
I have been blessed to have so many friends, being in the industry, being a musician for all my life. I'm only 80, I'm going on 82. He's 36 days older, so he's the big brother and I'm the little brother. We're probably some of the older people here in the room. But I've been so blessed to have so many good friends, and so many of them have gone on before us. Guy asked me the other day, Eddie, why don't you get the band together and go play? And I said, hell, they're all dead. So anyway, this gentleman sitting next to me, I have known for 66 years. And we have shared a love for family, for music. And it's been just an incredible relationship. And Charlie he's a celebrity. He's a big deal. He started out here in radio with KWTO, and we're going to get to that, KICK, and then on up to New York. And he was in it for, 40 years, Charlie, probably?
I'm not admitting that.
Oh, okay.
I will.
But in all of his celebrity and the success he's had, I have never known a more humble and genuine human being in my life. Charlie would rather sit and talk to you about the beautiful streams in the Ozarks and the beautiful, heartwarming people here that inhabit this place, pardon my English. But he's been a great friend to me through hell and high water, and always been here when I needed him, and never talks about the show. The only time Charlie would ever bring it up to me, he would call me from the show and say, Eddie, I'm sitting here talking to LaVon Helm, or I'm talking, I'm sitting on the B3. I just got off the B3 with
Billy Preston.
Billy Preston. I remember that call.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it was never about him and the show. It was about these incredible people that he met and had contact with. But let's get on with the show, and I'm going to introduce this dude. Let's see, what's his name? The co-founder and keyboard player and arranger for Benny Mahan and the Ravens, the first greatest rock and roll band in Springfield, and on to New York with Don Imus with Imus in the Morning. Give it up for Charles McCord.
Thank you, little brother. I love you to death. But you're far too generous, and but I'm older than dirt, and I still enjoy the accolades. So thank you, and thanks to Chris and Kurt and everybody else who has thought that this might be a good idea. Oh my gosh, are you guys hard up for entertainment or what? But anyway, well, I don't even know exactly how to begin, but my history is kind of weird in that I did get involved in radio here really early, and the way I got involved was strange. I was not a great kid. In fact, my dad at one point had to haul me, my father hauled me down to the police station because he had, through his work, he knew of several of the detectives and stuff who were down there. And he said, by God, I'm taking you down there and they're going to talk to you. So that's the kind of kid that I was. And I got a job. Well, heck, I've worked since I was 11 years old. Anybody remember King's Drug Store over there on Pickwick? You remember King's? Well, that's where I started as a car hop at 11 years old, sitting out on a nail keg in front of King's Drug Store with another kid, trying to take those trays out to a car and keep them from falling off into the dirt. And I've worked forever. First job at 11, I've worked all the way through, and even though I'm retired, I still think I work pretty hard. But one of the jobs, I got a job at the Springfield Greene County Library, shelving books and stuff and hauling books around. Then I got a job at a place over on Commercial Street that installed storm windows and that kind of stuff. And this old feller took me around in a truck, and anyway, I didn't do well there either. So I made a note, how radio started, an unfortunate pool hall incident involving the panel truck that, being the idiot that I was, had the name of the company I worked for that installing windows. So it was parked down there, you know, off the square at one of the pool halls, which no longer exists. And somebody saw it, and they called my boss, said, you know, your installer is down there in that pool hall. So I got fired there pretty quick, but I actually was pretty good. I could shoot 9-ball pretty well, and these guys had come through from Kansas City, and I got fairly good to hustling them. That's God almighty. That's my dad then knew, same guy who took me down to the detectives at the police station, he knew the 3 principal owners at KICK. Lester Strauss was one of them from the Springfield Janitorial Supply, and the guy who had Mono Manufacturing, anybody remember, out at the airport out that way, and a third guy. And they were all good friends with my dad, and he said, can you do something? Is there anything that you can get this kid out of the pool halls and into something else that might be more promising? And they did. They got me into KICK, and I can't, it's hard to remember even what the heck I was doing at the outset, but pretty menial tasks. Might be, I always had a kind of little flair for writing, and I might be rewriting some commercial copy or something like that. And I had worked at KICK 1 week, I'll never forget it, when we had this little odd little room about 5 feet wide and 15, 18 feet long. And that's where the teletypes were, the old teletypes that went clackety, clackety, clackety with as the news came in, with the folded sheets of paper and everything. And they had a system for alerting you to emergency broadcasts and that sort of thing. And there was one that you never heard. You might hear it go ding, 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 which was a bulletin. And then there were 5 dings, which was something above that. And then there was a flash, and that was 10 bells. Ding, 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 ding. I thought, what the hell is wrong with that machine? And I went over there and looked at the little paper as it's coming up, ratcheting through the thing. And it said, shots have been fired at the presidential motorcade in Dallas. Quote, that's exactly what it said. And I thought, oh, but Aaron, I tore off the paper and took it into the general manager's office, which was just a few steps away. Is KICK still down there?
No, it's a restaurant.
It's a restroom? Oh, a restaurant, see? 82 years old. They don't work. So I tore that off, took it into the general manager's office and said, sir, is this important? He looked at it. Bob Vineyard. Bob Vineyard. He said, yes, that's important. Why don't you take it into the disc jockey and have him read it on the... So I did. And from that point forward, there was a guy who was kind of read the news and did sports and drank. And he had been drinking that day and couldn't handle the job as well as he really should have. And he had a wastebasket here in which he was doing unfortunate biological things. But anyway, there was another, a few bulletins obviously followed that, and I was providing him that information, and he wasn't handling it well. A couple of days later, after all of the, that horrible stuff, remember driving around with your headlights on, as you participated in the national mourning, and I remember all of that kind of stuff. Anyway, the president had been taken back to what was in Andrews Air Force Base, is now Joint Base Andrews or whatever. And so we were having the funeral and all of that sort of stuff. And Richard Cardinal Cushing in New York City wrote a little short eulogy to John Kennedy. And, and Mr. Vineyard, the general manager, I gave that to him. He said, well, why don't you take it into Bob and have him, and he just stopped. He said, no. He said, you kind of have a good voice. Why don't you go in and read that? Do you think you can do it? And I said, yeah. And the guy who was on the DJ at that time was a fellow named John Criswell. Don't know if any of you guys remember John Criswell or not, but there was John Criswell, Jim Stanley, Cliff House, and all those people. Well, anyway, Criswell's on the air, and he opened my microphone on this table in front of me. So anyway, I always thought this was really something, that the first thing I ever read on the air was Richard Cardinal Cushing's eulogy to John F. Kennedy. And I always thought that was just, wow, well, talk about participating in a moment. This little weirdo kid from the Ozarks. And after that, Mr. Vineyard, the general manager, said, okay, you're now the newsman. And so from those humble beginnings, then I went on. I stayed at KICK not terribly long, and actually got to go out and cover news events, city council here and stuff. And Don Bush, anybody remember city manager Don Bush? Yeah, okay. And then I went to KWTO, largely through my grandmother, May Kennedy McCord, who had a show on Saturdays, little quarter-hour show, Hillbilly Heartbeats, and she was a beloved figure in the Ozarks. And anyway, with Ralph Foster, God bless him, and he loved my grandmother, also May Kennedy, and so I got a job there doing the news stuff at KWTO. KWTO had a marvelous signal, 50,000 watts. Keep watching the Ozarks, KWTO. And it reached all the way into Dallas. What do you want?
The mic.
What about it?
You talk into it, buddy.
What is it? What's happening?
Talk into the mic.
Talk into the mic?
There you go.
Who's that? Is that Chris? What do you think you are? Some kind of a damn director, Chris? Wouldn't you think that after over 50 years in broadcasting that I would know something about mic control? Yeah, really. So anyway, can you all hear me? So the KWTO signal reached as far as Dallas, Texas. John Criswell, the guy for whom I had read that Cardinal Cushing's eulogy, he had gone from KWTO to WFAA in Dallas. And he told them down there, said, listen to this guy. He's a friend of mine in Springfield on KWTO. Well, they could actually hear it. They'd get that signal in Dallas. And I said, yeah, he sounds pretty good, So Criswell said, well, why don't we get him down here to, anyway, long story short, John Criswell got me to WFAA. And WFAA had this huge signal. John Criswell leaves WFAA, goes to WEAM in Arlington, Virginia. Same thing. Got a guy down there who said, why don't you see the station manager up there, who was an ogre, a horrible human being. But anyway, he listened to it and said, well, yeah, he sounds pretty good. Why don't you get him coming up? Okay. So I go from KICK, KWTO, WFAA, WEAM, where it was such an awful situation. None of us lasted very long there. But it was then that I went to, people heard me in that market and said, well, we get them over here. So I went to WWDC, which was right in the suburbs of Maryland, there, right outside the District of Columbia. I lasted there for a while, and then I went from there into this district itself, into DC, to WTOP, the Post-Newsweek owned station, and that was a big deal. I mean, covering stuff on Capitol Hill and all this kind of crap, and oh my God, that was huge. Went to a couple of inaugural balls and that sort of junk. Couldn't afford it. Connie, that's my commander-in-chief, who's down in Arkansas right now with our rescue dog. She actually made her own gown, and it was glorious. We couldn't afford any of that crap. But anyway, WTOP, and some people heard me up in New York, and they actually flew me. And this blew my mind. They had bought me an airline ticket and had me come up there and audition for NBC. What else you want to know? Because that was, then I spent the next, until I retired. That was
Charlie,
it.
tell everybody about your aircraft, that you bought an airplane and you and Connie would fly back to Springfield.
With what?
But the plane only had a stick and a gas gauge. That's all. I
Yeah.
remember.
Well, I got my pilot's license and some stuff up there, but we had a little plane that even slightly smaller wingspan and slightly shorter fuselage than a Piper Cub. It's called a Piper Vagabond. And anybody know a Vagabond? You do? Really? Because almost no one knows a Vagabond. Everybody knows a Piper Cub, but the little Vagabonds, PA-19 and PA-15, PA-17. Ours was a 65 horsepower Lycoming engine. And Connie, who is 5'2", would get out there, and she would prop that freaking airplane. And the people at the little airport where we were, they say, "Oh my God, is that girl? She's propping that plane?" And then I would sit there, brakes, contact, boom. But we flew that little airplane, no instruments, almost. It had no, the altimeter was broken. It had airspeed. It had airspeed, oil, that 4 or 5 little gauges. We flew that airplane from suburban Maryland, where we kept it, at a little airport, Davis Airport in Laytonsville, Maryland. We flew that plane here to Springfield, Missouri. And it had stick and rudders. And you guys know what, aircraft charts are called sectionals. And what we did, we drew a line, taped a bunch of these sectionals together to cover from Washington, D.C. to Springfield. Taped them all together, laid them out on the floor. I drew a line down the middle, and we had on 10 miles either side so that we could navigate by dead reckoning. That's an unfortunate term, dead reckoning. But anyway, we flew that freaking, and it had a little gas tank that was under the panel, and a wire float that indicated that as the float went down, you knew that, well, it's probably getting time that we tried to find a place to refuel. But anyway, that was an adventure. That was great. And we did that 2 or 3 times in that little airplane.
Yeah,
Just insane.
you were insane.
Yeah, and remain so to this day.
You have always been insane.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chi-Chi Monk Boy, yes.
Yeah, Chi-Chi Monk Boy. Yeah.
But anyway, that was how I got to WNBC and NBC, and I got an opportunity to do newscasts on, you remember the old, boy, am I dating myself, my God, on the old NBC Monitor program that was on the weekends with, some great personalities and stuff, and that was such fun. And I'd sit there in that little booth and say, what am I doing here? But it was fun. And then, oh my God, the people that I got to run, like Eddie was saying, the people I got to run into, get introduced to, who I became friends with and stuff, were just for a little kid from the freaking Ozarks, it was an amazing career. And when did I meet Imus? Imus came from Cleveland,
Yeah.
to WNBC to do the morning jock show. I was already there doing morning news, and we were thrust together by that circumstance, and we, as much as I regret it, we never grew apart. But that's how we got together, and we did this is unusual, and I'm proud of this, that we remained together except for one brief stint when he got fired, but he came back. We were together for 41 freaking years, and that's unheard of in radio or in Mike, this radio and that 2 people would remain together that long. That just doesn't happen. But unfortunately, it happened to me. No, Imus was great, boy, but what a character! Oh my Lord.
Charlie, I've talked to I don't know how many people all over the country, and that tuned into the show and absolutely loved it. But every one of them said we tuned in because we wanted to hear Charlie jump Imus's hind end, And I think that was some of the fun part. And you can go into your computer, phone, pad, iPad, whatever, and just put in there Charles McCord, Don Imus rants. And you can it'll pop them up and you will crack up. They're beautiful.
You're right.
Yeah.
I can go back and look at some of those little episodes, And I am in tears. That some of them are funny. Some of them are funnier than others, obviously, but my gosh, there were a couple of them that were just absolutely.
The book.
People think that this is the funniest radio I've ever heard in my life. Or that was on TV, though, wasn't it?
That was on TV.
Yeah, that's after we went to Fox, where we became the morning show on the Fox.
Business?
What the hell was it? Fox Business. Thank you, Eddie Bunky.
Fox Business. Yeah.
On the Fox Business thing, we were their morning program.
I was in bed with I just had a meniscus repaired, and I was laying in bed. Susie was in the front room, and she said, "Eddie, got to get in here right now. Charlie has just said there's a small plane or something hit the World Trade Center."
God, yeah.
And I hobbled back and got in. Oh, darn, what is it? What's going on? And bingo, and tell about that, Charlie.
Well, that was, I mean, everybody knows that, but 9/11, and we're on the air just doing our regular program, but we were on radio at this point. This was before we moved to TV, and we had big monitors, though, that we monitored various television shows, even though we were in a radio broadcast booth. And all of a sudden, this image of one of the Trade Center towers, I can't remember which one got hit first, and there was this slanted scar right close, but you couldn't tell anything, even though we had great big monitors. And we're looking at that and said, a plane? A plane has hit the... Nah. And then we said, well, yeah, the plane did hit it. And you saw the little blackened image of where the plane had impacted. And you thought, well, it's a Cessna 172, a vagabond, you know. No, it wasn't. And that day unfolded. I mean, I just remember every little episode, but we all remember every little episode and where we were and what was going on. But that was amazing. And I normally would have been getting off the air at about 11 a.m. or so and then doing a little more work. But I had to remain on the air all day long. And then leaving Manhattan, I normally would go up to the George Washington Bridge and go out that way, and you couldn't get there. They had it all shut down. And finally, I was allowed, showing press credentials and stuff to get through to the GW Bridge and heading out westbound. The eeriest thing, the sun was setting as I made my way out, and you looked down there and you saw all that material going into the air and everything from the Trade Center. And down this side of the George Washington Bridge and this side, packed with people slowly walking out. I couldn't have, two rows of people, 15, 20 feet deep on either side. I thought, what in the world? And I drove out, went home, back the next day, came in and saw these. Down at that end of Manhattan, you just saw that smoke going clear across out toward Long Island, wow, that was just unbelievable. And anybody know Warner Wolf?
Yeah.
Does that name ring a bell with anybody? And he's an icon in radio sports particularly. And he had an apartment that faced the Trade Center, and so we immediately went to him when it became obvious that we were under attack. And he looked out at the Trade Center from his apartment and was on the air with us, he was describing everything that was going on that he could see from his vantage point, which was unusually close. And he, at one point, we're there talking to him via communications, and he said, wait a minute, and then just silence. Warner, what's going on? What's happening? And he just said, it's gone. It's gone. What's gone? What are you talking? The building is gone. Oh, that brings chills to my arms right now. You know, goosebumps. That was an amazing thing. And you know, we had Mayor Giuliani was on with us quite a bit during that episode, but he's on with everybody, all the radio stations and stuff. But America's mayor. And he's not being treated very fairly right now, I don't think, but that's purely my personal feeling. But anyway, 9/11, 2001.
We, Susie and I went out, we flew out to, I guess we flew into New York and you and Connie picked us up. We stayed with you a week. And it was really something else because Charlie was press corps. He had this car with this license plate, front and back, press. When you go to New York, you park your car somewhere and you get on the subway or you get a bus or you get something. You don't drive in New York. Charlie would pull into right in front of NBC or wherever, just pull up and stop, said, okay, let's get out. We can get out and leave the car sit there and we
Yeah.
oh man.
The NYP zones, as they were called, New York press zones, were spotted around town down towards City Hall and governmental institutions and stuff. And I just go, yeah, I got right in front of the RCA building there on 6th Avenue, great NYP zone, and I went to work so early. I got up at 3:30 in the morning and was to be in there, you know, to start the program at about 5 or 5:30, and I never had the NYP zones were never taken. I always had a slot, so that was good. Not anymore. Things have changed in old Manhattan a heck of a lot. Even when I retired, in whatever it was, when did I retire? 2011? Come on, John. What, didn't you say you retired in 2011? I think I did around that same time. I had already noticed that the conditions and the environment and I hate this word, the zeitgeist of Manhattan was changing, and not for the better. And it had been changing for about 9 or 10 years that I really could see it happening. And little did I know, never would have thought that what has happened there happened. I mean, now, that it must just be a hole. Terrible. And it was a wonderful city, but no more. No
Gone.
more.
Yeah.
Don't want to go. Even for a couple of medical conditions that we have to monitor, the commander-in-chief and I, and we had these wonderful doctors in New York at NYU, Cornell, and stuff like that, and we have now located other doctors back here. I mean, these guys became good friends. These doctors, they probably wonder what ever happened to Charlie and Connie. Not coming to your city anymore. Too bad. But that's how many cities? New York, St. Louis, Atlanta, Chicago, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Denver, name it, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Portland. Not as I remember it growing up in the 50s.
They were the good old days.
But anyhow, so what else are we talking about,
Well,
Eddie Bungie?
let's go back to 1960, 59, 60.
Yeah.
And you and I went to a party on
God.
North Kansas.
Oh, Lord.
Hillcrest and Central kids. And you had just learned What'd I Say off of this album, Ray Charles.
Greatest Ray Charles album ever made. That one right there.
This is the album we listened to.
That's
I
it.
still have it.
That's
There's probably 2 records in it. I don't know. We wore one out. We got a second.
Yep.
But he learned every lick on What I Say, and then we loved Drowning My Own Tears, and all of the stuff on here is just fabulous. The best album I think Ray ever put
I
out.
think it is.
But we're over at this party, and they've got an old upright piano, and he's doing What I Say, and I'm sitting there banging on tables, whatever, and this little black-headed kid, good-looking kid, comes up and starts singing. So he's singing What I Say, doing all the stuff, and Charlie stopped. And we got through, we just laughed. We just started laughing. And Charlie put his hand, he said, "I'm Charles McCord," and he said, "I'm Benny Mahan." I said, "Yeah, I'm Eddie Bungie. Good to meet you, Ben." And Ben said, "Yo, we ought to get together and do something about this." So we got together and did something about that. It took about 3 months. We put a bunch of tunes together, and we played at the either the O'Reilly Gym or out at Doling, Dance Land, I can't remember, made $2 a piece or something.
Yep.
But, 10 cents to get in. And that was the beginning of the Ravens. And it went on from there, and we everybody wanted to play the Cockatoo Club, the greatest roadhouse. If you were a band, you had to play the Cockatoo Club or you were nothing. And Charlie and I and Benny would drive up. We'd listen to Mike McAllister. He'd be there on Saturday night. Charlie would talk to Morris Harrell, the owner. Wonderful, one of the most wonderful
Just
managers or owners of a club I've ever talked to. His wife, Marty. But anyway, Charlie visited with them. And so anyway, we went back up on an afternoon, like Friday afternoon, and Charlie said, we're going to get a gig here. And I thought, oh, brother, with that mouth, we'll never make it. So he did. Morris told him, he said, "Charlie, if you guys can hold the crowd for 2 hours on Saturday night," he said, "I'll book you back in." Well, we showed up. We had Mike Bride with us, just,
Brilliant.
Insane.
Anything with yo-yo, he can play it. I don't. No kidding.
Yeah, so we played that Saturday night. We held them for 4 hours, and so we got the gig.
Yep,
Yeah,
that we did.
That was our Ravens. Cy Simon booked us into Peoria. It was Peoria,
Yep.
Illinois.
Peoria, Illinois. The Peppermint Lounge, not the one in New York City.
Nope.
But the Peppermint
That's
Lounge
right.
in Peoria,
That's
Illinois.
right. And who was on the billboard coming in next week?
Oh, I don't know.
Bill Black. The Bill Black.
Oh,
combo.
yeah, the Bill Black Trio? Is that what the
Trio,
the Bill Black Trio or whatever.
combo or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, "How will we do this? They're bringing Bill Black in. What are we going to do?" So we had a great time. Did a good job, I guess.
The Ravens, that original Ravens combination, we were really good. We really were. That was you say about a band, you guys all know this, they're tight. And they can feel the groove and all that sort of stuff. Well, by golly, it did not, that was no exaggeration. And I don't know, that we distinguished ourselves rather well up there.
Well, Charlie is a concert pianist. And you can Google his concert, that he put on Imus's, and you've got to do that. You will not believe he plays a Chopin piece that I dearly love. It's wonderful. And so he's an accomplished pianist. He took jazz lessons from two of the great teachers here in Springfield.
Paul Mitchell.
Yeah. And
Frank Shipe.
Yeah.
And Bill Hickman.
So we're playing a whole lot of shaking, Matchbox, Long Tall Sally or whatever. Somebody says, "Play a slow tune." So Charlie starts, and we play Moonlight in Vermont. Who plays, what 50s band, and all the chords, and Bride play. Benny starts learning all these jazz tunes. Yeah. As you know, you heard Benny in the clubs. He could do Tony Bennett. He could do whoever. And he started singing these things. Well, our repertoire was unreal because, like I said, Tutti Frutti Old Rudy into Misty and Moonglow and all those great.
Into Moonlight Becomes You.
But that was the Ravens. I went in the Navy in '62, and Steve Kennedy became the drummer for the Ravens, and Johnny Friskhorn joined the band, bass player. And I had a little photo, and I couldn't find it, of that band. But now that had to cook. That had to be great, especially with.
Here's the thing that is heartbreaking. No one ever put a microphone on that original Ravens band. We have no material, no content, no nothing. And my rotten kid, my dearly, who I love dearly, my rotten kid says, I'd give anything to hear that band. And I said, well, you ain't gonna, because why didn't somebody think, just your fault?
Well, I had all of we had promo pictures made. We had beautiful little vests, and we had blue coats and these bat wing ties. We made all of these pictures. And one day Benny said, Eddie, can I borrow those pictures for a little bit? I said, well, yeah, give them back to me. That's all we've got.
Oh, yeah.
That's where they are. Wherever Benny is now, that's where the pictures are. So we have no promo pictures, and I have one picture. It's an original picture of Benny and the Ravens at it looks like probably Doling or something. I don't know where it is. Charlie evidently was in the military doing his 2 weeks or something, and we had Nolan Thompson and Larry Williams, Benny, and myself. So that's the only picture there. So if any of you can dig back in your Brownie Hawkeye snaps that you've got, and you've got some Ravens
Nobody
pictures.
does. Nobody's got a damn
They
thing.
don't exist. It's too bad.
It doesn't. Yes, sir.
We are now in question and answer. So
Oh, we are?
Let me ask you, Charles,
Yes, sir, Mr. Peters.
the ensemble cast on the Imus program, when you had Larry Kenny and Rob Barton, and some of the things they would create are still memorable to me, and you wrote most of them, didn't you? Tell us about that process and how that went on. Those guys were amazing.
Well, very talented. A guy named, did you mention Larry Kenny?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, okay. One of the greatest radio voices I've ever heard in my life for doing commercial stuff. And you heard him, you don't realize it, but you've heard him a lot on TV. Not now, because he's retired, I think. But he just was a wonderful a mimic. And some of the things, one of my favorite characters that he did was Wilfred Brindley. And he would do, Wilfred Brindley for Quaker Oats. I can't do it, but I wrote him. And I don't know, I just said I always had kind of a flair for writing and writing some stuff that ostensibly had some humor value. And so I wrote for all these, this thing here. Oh my God, I can't get up, Eddie.
Oh, I get it.
This thing here is the Imus family. Don, me over there, and then all of these are characters that appeared on the show. And Muffy and who were the Connecticut, the chocolate clench jaw, I mean, just that was fun. Crazy Bob. All these characters. Moby Worm, who attacked schools around New York City, and I wrote
Is Kurt Hargis related? Is Kurt Hargis related to the Hargis?
What?
My buddy Kurt out here, Kurt Hargis, is he related to the Hargis character?
Oh, that's one of Don's one of his famous characters was Dr. Billy Sol Hargis, the preacher, and that's why Kurt Hargis. And I said, "Oh my God, it's Hargis." He said, "That's ironic." And but that was the character that he brought with him from Cleveland, and with which he was most identified was Billy Sol Hargis, the Imus, and Imus did that character. So, but I wrote a bunch of that crap too. We even wrote a book called God's Other Son, and it was about Billy Sol Hargis.
Do those recordings exist anywhere of some of those bits that those two guys would voice that you wrote?
They've got to somewhere. They're out there. They're certainly would be easier to find than anything by the Ravens. Yeah, they're around those characters but boy, I mean, what was it we did? Something Santana Banana, the guy who was the Mexican, who was a Hispanic fellow, and the two people who were from like Larchmont, had Larchmont Lockjaw, yeah, two young people, and
General Pat.
all this stuff. And I wrote most of that. Now, occasionally Rob Bartlett, who's brilliant, would write his own material because he was a professional comedian, stand-up comic, and one of the funniest sons of bucks ever. And again, a super smart. That's the other thing about these people who were associated and came around that program is how smart they were. I mean, you said, yeah. So it was wonderful rubbing shoulders with, that whole crew. Fun.
What year did you go to New York?
What years?
Yeah, what year was it when you went up to New York?
70 or 71.
Oh, that late.
Yeah, I mean, went from
DC.
Washington D.C. to New York, right? Around that
I got
time.
one more question. Is it possible that you guys may not have been as good a band as you remember?
Help me, Eddie. What?
Probably was.
What was it? No. You've got to remember this. I'm 81 years old. I said 82 a while ago. I gained a year. 81 years old. I can't hear anymore.
Charlie?
Yeah, we're done.
Here, I got something here. Just a minute.
What?
Just a minute.
What do you got?
I'm going to see if it'll come up through you.
He's the author. Whitaker Chambers, the biography, nominated for a National Book Award. And I got a listener sent me a copy of Richard Nixon's Six Crises, a first edition copy, in which Mr. Nixon wrote that the FBI on December 13th, 1948, I believe, or whenever it was, had found that Woodstock typewriter, which was not the case. And it was a misprint or Nixon claimed that it was a researcher's error.
Spit it out.
Sam Tannenhouse. What if he believed Nixon?
The hell
And he said, yes, he
difference
did.
does it make? What difference does it make? Who found what when?
Well, because the Hiss people seized on this.
Well, who cares what the Hiss people seized on? What difference does it make?
Because
You said you promised.
Yeah.
You promised an hour ago,
Right.
almost exactly an hour ago,
Right.
that you were going to drop this, that there was one more telephone call and two questions to Sam Tannenhouse, and you were going to drop
Right.
Whitaker Chambers, Alger Hiss.
Well, just reprising what had happened.
Don't reprise this. Don't reprise anything. You said you were going to drop it.
Okay.
Well, drop it then.
I haven't. I've got it.
You haven't. You obviously haven't dropped it. You're still waving the damn books around.
I understand that.
Do you understand? You have driven us crazy with this crap.
Yeah.
We're sick of it.
Fine.
They're dead. Whitaker Chambers is dead. Alger Hiss is dead. Richard Nixon is dead. I wish I were dead. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it now. Stop it. For God's sakes.
Regrettably, there are several of those that still exist.
This is why people tuned in to Imus.
Oh, God.
You wouldn't let that go?
There,
What about Don Imus' brother?
Fred Imus, he was the most droll, laconic, laid-back guy. Fred and his dog. What the heck is his dog's name? And that was always something that I looked forward to, was when Fred would call in and talk to his brother about just some totally just inane subject. And one of the best ones that I recall is he called one day and his opening was, you ever lost fruit? Well, no, Fred. Well, I can't find it. it just went on from there. Have you ever lost fruit? No, Fred, I have never lost fruit. No. But he was another guy. He was beloved. I mean, Fred became just a great character, and then he went into radio, and he was on satellite for a while, and then he passed away, and so there are no Imuses left except for little old Wyatt, who's now about 6'2", goes about 230, and wrestles the steers and rides bulls. Oh man.
Whatever happened to the ranch?
The ranch was, after Don got increasingly infirm, he always did have lung problems. He got bucked off a horse out there in Ribera, New Mexico, and it further damaged lungs that were already not great. And in fact, he died 3 times on a medevac helicopter. And they unfortunately just kept bringing him back, which just extended my sentence with him. Anyway, he finally, it just became to the point where, you know, he died, as will we all. But we're not on our own timeline. We're on our Lord and Savior Jesus' timeline. And for some reason, that guy has decided to keep me and my little brother around for 81 years, and we still have most of our cognitive abilities. And I'm down on the bluff front yesterday cutting trees. And all I can think of, Joe Biden isn't going to be joining me down here pulling these trees up this slope. And he and I and Daddy are all exactly the same age, 81 years old.
Yeah. Amen.
Oh, brother. So anyhow.
Anybody else? Oh, we'll go ahead.
I had a chance to talk to you a few minutes before you got started, and I wanted your opinion on the state of radio today. I mean, broadcasting is a lot different now than it was when you were active in it, and I'm curious.
You've noticed that. Yeah, it's when I went to KICK, first of all, I'll never forget watching the disc jockey queuing up commercials on reel-to-reel tapes. You remember that, John? And how fast they were. John Criswell could just do that, and actually had a record out on a platter, and you would cue that thing up, and they were you ran your own board, your own, you know, all your stuff, and it ain't that way anymore. And I think it's lost a lot of its. That was very alluring and compelling. Something about that you had to do all of that and run your microphone and do your patter, whatever it is. And gosh, those guys were good. Jim Stanley and Cliff House, Criswell.
Don Woody.
Who?
Don Woody.
John Lee.
Don Woody.
Who? Help me.
Don Woody.
Woody. Oh, Woody. Don Woody.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, like I said, 81 years old, can't hear, can't think. Oh, anyway. It's fun, though, having been through that and looking back at it, and I really wouldn't trade any of it. And it still surprises me. This ne'er-do-well knucklehead from the part of the Ozarks, which lived in Manhattan, or suburban New Jersey. Worked right at Rockefeller Center, right where over the skating rink, where the tree goes up. Looked right out at it. Fabulous. Most people think the RCA building with the wonderful restaurants and clubs and stuff that were at the top of the building, the Rainbow Room, and another club called Rainbow and Stars that was just off of that. So it's very, you would think that, oh my God, what the heck am I? And that's exactly what I thought. What the heck am I doing here? But it was such an opportunity, as a gift from God to be able to do that. And I did it a long time and never got fired. That's another thing that people couldn't believe about me. So you're the only person in broadcasting, radio and or television, that we can think of who never got fired. I never did. I don't know.
Well, Charlie, we'd like to thank you for being with us, Music Monday, the Ozarks.
Well, thank you, Chris, really. Thank you all so much. Bless your hearts.